have equity in that deal. So whenever that property sells, you will get that original investment back.
Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to Millionaire Mafia. I've got my buddy and creator of the Bulletproof Wealth Strategy, Tom Wani, here with me. In this video, this is going to be the last one, part 4 of a 4-part series that we did with Tom on his Bulletproof Wealth Strategy and how it can be used and how I specifically use it in my real estate investment business. We'll do some follow-on stuff with some specific examples that I'll cover that I've used these policies for, and then I'll actually add a bonus of how I work with a bank to actually get a collateralized loan, or basically a line of credit on my cash value with the bank at a much lower rate than I could borrow from my insurance policies. But that is going to be for another video. What we're going to talk about today is what a lot of you guys are curious about, and what any investor needs to focus with or know is, what are the risks, pitfalls, or things I need to know about whatever strategy or investment or plan that I'm thinking about doing. So this is no different. There's definitely a lot of pros, there's some cons, or at least some things that you need to consider in these policies before you go ahead and enter into something that is going to be a multi-year ordeal. So Tom, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you being here. So what I've done is I basically compiled a list of questions or comments or just concerns from some of my viewers and friends and family over the years that I've had this policy, and I want to cover some of them. A lot of them we've already covered in some of the other videos. So this video is going to be a little bit shorter because we've already covered those. And if you've got any questions that weren't answered here, I guarantee you they're in the other videos because they're a wealth of information. So check those out. Tom, the big question that biggest questions we've had have really already been covered. But the big one I think that all investors are going to be concerned about is, what are the risks? Like how can I lose my money? What happens if we have another 2007, 2008, or a Great Depression where, everybody, goes out of business and all this stuff? How am I affected?
That is an awesome question, Jake. I think that it is very important, before we get into what are the risks, that people understand that this strategy, the Bulletproof Wealth Strategy, and specifically the part of the Bulletproof Wealth Strategy where you're creating a privatized bank inside of specially designed whole life insurance for the specific use of collateralizing the cash value and putting it into your business or investments, that strategy has risk associated with it because it is a long-term strategy. It is a strategy that has to be at least where you put in the minimum amount of funding required for 7 years in order to make it considered life insurance by the IRS. If you stop paying into this thing or stop putting any new money in after just a year or two, there is no possible way that you're going to get all the money back out of it that you put into it. It works much like any other type of place you store money other than a bank account, where if you were to buy something like mutual funds, if you were to buy an apartment complex or anything, and then turn around the next day and say, oh, I need to sell this, you're going to be down because those things are not liquid. You have to, there's fees associated with them. There's closing costs associated with selling an apartment building. There's asset under management and wrap fees associated with mutual funds. There are surrender fees associated with insurance. So you got to be sure that this is something you are committed to long term. But one of the things, I know we were talking about Jake's policy earlier in another video, and I just want to pull it back up real quick and share with the people these numbers, because I think one of the misconceptions is, hey, if I put in money and I decide not to do it anymore, I'm going to be out all the money that I put in. And that is a huge problem in thinking, and it's absolutely not true. The way this works is that, let's just say Jake put in at this point $72,500 and said, you know what, I'm not putting in another penny. cancel this policy. Well, the insurance company is going to send Jake a check back for approximately $47,000. So it's not like he's going to be, getting a $72,500 hit. It's just the difference between your net cash value and your cumulative premium outlay. And you can see once you get into the policy, your net cash value exceeds your cumulative premium outlay. So if you decide to just stop and want to surrender this thing, which I would never recommend doing because you'll lose the tax advantages. But if you did that, let's say in year 11, they would just send you a check for $469,754. Now you are going to have some tax on that because it is more than you put in. So that is why we never, and especially in retirement, we don't pull out the money that is the capital gains inside the policy. Once we get to the capital, the basis of the policy, then we switch to collateralized loans. So I just want you guys to understand that you're going to get back out whatever your net cash value is, either via a loan or via actual cash, because this is your money. And a lot of people say, well, what happens if the insurance company goes bankrupt? Well, the reality is that is the reason that I only work with very old, established, long-time, traditional, mutually owned life insurance companies. So this company that Jake is with is a company called Penn Mutual, and they have been around for they've been around for 175 years, right? Yeah. And the chance of them going bust is almost zero because they have such an amazing track record. And for that 175 year period, we're talking about through the Civil War, through World War I, World War II, everything, the Vietnam War, all of this, they paid dividends. Not only were they in existence, but they paid a dividend. Now, if they were to go out of business, here's what would happen in reality. Another insurance company would buy them. Okay, that's number one. And if that didn't happen, there's state insurance, that each state has their own insurance that insures the insurance companies. So the reality is it kind of is similar to FDIC, but it's for insurance. And the chance of you like losing everything and somehow completely this blowing up and you never getting any of your money back, let me tell you, if that happens, you better be investing in lead because that's the only thing that's going to be worth anything at that point. And I'm talking about bullets.
Yeah. So, I mean, think about it. What are one of the two too big to fail things back in the 07-08 issue? AIG, right? I mean, there's insurance companies are what the high risk companies hold their low risk assets in. They invest in insurance companies because of their stability. So there is no 100% guarantee, but like Tom said, if insurance major, almost 200-year insurance companies that are the size, it's not just the longevity, it's the massive size, the impact they would have on the economy if one or more of them failed we're not worried about insurance anymore. Your Stone Age stuff. We're talking like apocalyptic stuff. So unlike the financial market having a recession or a depression and people, big wealth transfers, billions and billions and trillions of dollars, that happens. I mean, it's happened over those 175 years. You got, the recession in the late 1800s, the Great Depression, the multiple different depressions and the recessions over the years up until 2000, the dot-com bubble in 2007-8. Like there's been a lot of those things where people have lost tons of money, but what hasn't stopped is the dividends being paid out by the insurance companies, and very, 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 very few. And I don't know any off the top of my head big mutual companies that have failed. I mean, and when they were about to, they're bailed out.
Well, I would like you to put together a list of all of the banks that have been in continuous operation for 175 years under the same name. And it would be a very, very short list. I'm not even sure if there's a single bank that has been around for that long.
I doubt it.
But all I can tell you is that, it's very secure. In fact, this is where banks choose to invest billions and billions and billions of their money, like Jake was saying, it's through a specific product called bank-owned life insurance, which you can Google and look at, but they put in billions of dollars a year into these same strategies that we're talking about because of how safe they are. So the risk is so low of you losing everything that it's really not even worth discussing. There's just not even it's not a thing that I'm at all concerned about. But anyways, so you will lose some money though if you start one of these plans and then stop it right away. There's no question that this is not designed for a start stop. I'm going to do this for a year and then stop it. It just does not work. And it has to be long-term strategy. It's a wealth building generational tool.
Exactly. So, and this doesn't and shouldn't be your only place that you put money. This should be a supplement to your investment strategy, right? So you shouldn't be starting, and we talked about this in a previous videos. You shouldn't be starting this product unless you guys are financially set to a point where you can start this and put money into it, so that you don't have to worry about it stressing you out, right? You saw my policy. Now I'm kind of an all in or nothing. And that's the way I just do it. I just throw as much as I can. A lot of you guys are too. That's what makes us great entrepreneurs. But just make sure you're careful when you think about it. If you talk with Tom, like he's going to go over and say, hey, this is what I recommend for you. And he's going to tell you if he thinks you're being over, aggressive, or if you're being too optimistic on what you can and can't do. So that's what's great. And we definitely discussed that. And he actually kind of talked me down from a ledge a couple times, or trying to go a little bit further than I should have. So, and that's what you want. So
let me just comment on that too, Jake. It's not just me, which I definitely am taking a very close look at to make sure my clients aren't trying to put too much into this, but it's also there's strict financial regulations around how much can somebody do, right? I think this is a good time, Jake, for us to describe what allows insurance companies to sell people life insurance. I mean, why does this industry exist? And the reality is that the way that I describe this to people, which I think this is a really good point to interject here, is that if you had a house, Jake, that was worth $200,000, that's what it was worth right now. Could you go to your homeowner's insurance company, like let's just call it Safeco or Allstate or whoever you're putting your homeowners with, and say, hey, I would like to insure my house for $800,000. And they might say, well, Jake, well, Mr. Chambers, why would you like to put an $800,000 policy on your $200,000 house that just appraised? And you would say, well, hey, if it burns down, I want to build a house like 3 times bigger, right? Yeah. Well, that would be ridiculous, because they would say, absolutely not. If they sold you that policy, it would be insurance fraud, okay? Because they are not allowed to do anything more than replace the loss of your house. In other words, they call that indemnification. They're allowed to indemnify or replace the loss of whatever it is that you're insuring. So what are they replacing with life insurance? Okay, that's the big question. And this will determine how much you can get. They're replacing your income. Okay. And how is it that they determine how much you can buy life insurance? It's based on a 4% income replacement ratio. And what that means is that if you had $1 million of life insurance at 4%, if your spouse were to get that $1 million, put it into a bank, because you're no longer with us, then she should be able to take that money and earn about 4% return on it, and that would replace $40,000 of your income. So just in general terms, every $40,000 of income you make, you can qualify for about $1 million of life insurance. So if you make $80,000, you get qualified for $2 million. At 120, about $3 million. Now this changes based on how old you are. So obviously the older you get, the less life insurance you can purchase. But in general, that's why they allow you to buy this. And that's how we structure everything. So that being said, they won't allow you to put in more than you can afford to put in, because there's strict regulations on how much life insurance you can get and how much money you can put in based on that amount of life insurance. Does that help?
Exactly. Yeah. So, and that actually answers the first part of the next question, which is how much. The first part is how much can you put into the policy? I won't get it. We're not going to get into details on like you can put 35 or whatever, but that's what it's based off of, and that's something that that they would figure out.
Yeah.
If,
So
I
I can answer that real quick. It's a super simple answer to that, and that is that first we have to decide how much can you qualify for. So let's just say that you are 41 years old, making $120,000. Well, guess what? You qualify for $3 million. Okay. And next we figure out how much money can we put in for that $3 million policy and have it not turn into a modified endowment contract, which we went in detail as to what that is on our last video. But the reality is that how much you can put in is based on how much you qualify for. And then additionally, it's based on your age, and it's also based on your health. So the less healthy you are, the more the cost of insurance is, and the more amount of money you can put in relative to any amount of life insurance. However, as you get less and less healthy, this thing continues to make less and less sense to do, because the cost of insurance is going to swamp the amount of money that you have access to, and it just doesn't make sense to do on people who are extremely unhealthy. So this strategy is really best implemented by people who are in reasonably decent health.
Exactly. So there are some things that you need to consider: your ability to fund this deal long term, your ability and desire to stay in it for that duration, at least till it capitalizes, if not longer, ideally forever. Yeah. But and then the other thing is you need to be in good health, right? So, and obviously, just like anything, the earlier you get in, all those things being equal, same health, the earlier you get in, the better it's going to be. Just from the actuary perspective, you have statistically more chance of living longer. So better, it makes more sense to the insurance company, so you get the benefit of that. So. Yes.
So the younger you are, the faster that you can accumulate cash, and your health is a big factor. However, guys, don't get freaked out, because if sometimes people can qualify when they think they can't, so it's worth a phone call just to kind of discuss all of this.
Yeah, it never hurts to try, and there's other ways that you can potentially insure other people too. So
yes. Absolutely.
We're not going to get into that, but that you can talk with Tom if you so choose. He does talk about that, I believe, in some of his videos, at least some of his older ones that I
yes, yeah.
But so that's good. And then so another thing we did cover it briefly in a previous video, but I'll just kind of finish this: is how soon can I access the money after I put it in? So year one, put a bunch of money into it or whatever it is. How soon and about how much of that can I access?
Okay, so the how soon is 30 days, and about how much can you access is totally dependent on the policy design. As in one of our prior videos, we went through the 3 primary designs that we have. And I'll just tell you guys, the hybrid design is the most popular of the 3 for somebody who has a large amount of liquidity to start a policy. And you can average access around 65%. So if you put in 100,000, be on the lookout doing that policy design for around $65,000 of access, somewhere in that vicinity, just to do round numbers. Now, if you do the crock pot, you can do a little bit less. If you do the microwave like we discussed, then that's a little bit more. But all those things comes with pros and cons. So I would definitely watch that prior video on the 3 different policy designs. And then I will work with you to structure this to work with your financial situation. So whatever way that makes sense for you to get money into a policy, then that's the way we'll structure it.
Right. So yeah, it was kind of a loaded question I asked them, but it's in general, it's obviously going to be less as you in the early years, and then it's going to be a lot more in the later years. It's going to be more than you put in. So, and we
totally. I mean, eventually it exceeds 100% of what you put in, and then eventually exceeds 200%. I mean, it's just the leverage involved gets a little bit crazy as you look at this more and more like a long-term strategy. This is not a short-term strategy. Right.
And then, so that kind of leads into the last question. Kind of sort of answered it there, but the one I get is how but the how much is one thing, but how does the cash value grow inside the policy?
That's
We kind of
great.
touched
Great
on this a little
question.
bit.
So, how it grows inside the policy is there are two components. There's a guaranteed component and then there's a dividend, right? So, it's going to grow no matter what. And there's this guarantee that is all illustrated inside the policy to show you your guaranteed minimums. And then each and every year, the company returns a portion of its profit back to the policy owners in the form of a dividend once they take out their company expenses and their mortality charges. And then the rest of it gets paid out to the policy owners because it's a mutually owned policy. So I only work with participating companies, which means they are mutually owned and they pay a dividend. And that is really the bulk of the growth is this dividend, which gets paid on your policy anniversary. So if your policy anniversary is in June, right, the dividend will be paid the following time, your next policy anniversary, it gets paid back for the prior year. And they declare their dividend rate once per year in January. So it's a really simple thing. You have to kind of just start doing it for it to make total sense. But they make money multiple different ways and they return profit back to you in that form of a dividend.
Okay, great. Well, in addition to all the questions and concerns that you've answered in previous videos, I think we pretty much covered everything that I have. Tom, before we go on, I really appreciate your time. This is a relatively short video as far as this video, but if you've been watching the series, the sun has gotten a lot lower in the background behind him. So he's been spending a lot of time with me on a Friday, and I really appreciate your time, Tom. Really quick, you got any parting shots before I kind of do the little end here?
Well, listen, Jake, I just really appreciate you. I appreciate your enthusiasm for this and really learning and wanting to learn more about this, because it's just like anything. It's like real estate investing specifically in that you have to start in order really to understand it, right? You just got to do something. You can't sit there and read books about real estate investing your whole life. You have to actually do it. And so I really appreciate how you learn the concept enough to get started. And then as you're in it, now you're learning more and more and more about how it works, and implementing it is the greatest teacher. And my last thing I will say is that the reason I understand it to the level that I do is because I actually participate in doing this and implementing it myself. And I totally understand that unless I was doing that, I would not be able to speak about it with the clarity and confidence that I do have, because I actually do it myself. And so it's one of those things you really want to be working with somebody who knows this thing from an actual use perspective, not just on an academic level. So again, my website is bulletproofwealth.info. Go there, sign up for my videos, and I will love to talk to you guys in detail and create a custom plan for you if this is something you're interested in learning more about.
Great. All right, Tom. Well, thank you. Tom, he just gave his information. I'll go ahead and link it below. You should have seen a couple videos linked above throughout this, as far as other videos you can check out for more information if you didn't get everything you need in here. I guarantee you'll find it in the other ones. And any other questions, if there are any, reach out to Tom and talk to him. Feel free to reach out to me, but you can probably get the answers just from his videos. Set up a time. He's super cool to talk to. Like he said, it takes time to learn this, and sometimes you got to kind of execute and then learn along the way. It'd be times where I'd be talking to Tom and I'd be like, yeah, so it works this way and this way and this way. He's like, yeah, man, it's really great, but you're wrong. And then he, kind of talk to me about what I did wrong and how to, be more knowledgeable about stuff. So he's a really cool guy to talk to, really chill, almost too chill sometimes. You're like, man, you should be angry at me right now. But but anyway, so I've got a bonus video that I'm going to add after this. And as much as we love Tom here, he won't be in it, but I'm going to have a guy that he introduced me to with Coastal State Bank. And the guy's name is Russell Bolton. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we used, after I kind of hit a specific wicket with my whole life policy, how I used that to do a line of credit, or basically we almost like what we did with wholesale. We assigned the cash value of the policies over to the bank, and then I was able to basically take out a much lower rate loan than I would have with Penn Mutual. It's a good rate, but I got an even better one, and then use that to leverage into real estate or business. And in my specific example, I bought an RV park here in Pensacola with a couple of my partners. So anyway, that one's going to be really cool. Go ahead and check that out. That'll be coming here as soon as I can get him on the phone and set up an interview and everything like that. So, but anyway, Tom, again, thank you for everything. I appreciate your time, and it was fun. I had a blast.
Thank you, Jake. I really enjoyed it, and I really appreciate you taking the time to go through and learn all this and share it with your followers.
Okay. Well, great, guys. So take what we did here. Just like anything, go research it on your own. Find stuff out. Don't take what I take with take what I say with a grain of salt. Take what Tom said with a grain of salt. Go figure it out on your own. I don't want anybody to believe what somebody else said unless they can verify it. That's what I try and teach here. I say what I what I've done and what I do and what I believe, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best or the only way. So anyway, go ahead and do that. Reach out to myself or Tom if you got any questions. And until next time, here's to your wealth.